Okay, I got the
Hello, hello.
the directory page. What am I gonna go to?
This is hello, hello. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm
Good
on the
morning.
internet listing of directory of 20 different things
Now,
to go to. Which one do
I'm
I need
going
to
to
go
have
to?
to take my computer
It's got a list.
in
Our
a
network,
different room
internet
because
solutions,
Ron's
business
still on
plan,
with T-Mobile,
unlimited business plan,
and
overload size, 15-day test drive, travel,
hold
T-Mobile.
on just a
What am I gonna
moment.
go to?
Hope you're good.
I'm going to take the computer back to the bedroom since he is trying to get T-Mobile set up and it just keeps crashing. Um, so I am going to be reading my notes. Um, Bear with me. He's left the TV on,
Hmm.
so because he came out to help me, and then of course I'm still tethered to this machine. Okay, so good Saturday morning, everybody. This is Linda calling from Buffalo, New York. And welcome to the Saturday edition of Optimize My Life. And so, what I'm going to be doing today is get my notes up here because we are celebrating Neurodiversity Week. And I found some wonderful information all about it, so that about neurodiversity and what that all includes. So, but neurodiversity celebrates neurological schools, universities, organizations, and others around the world with the opportunity to recognize the many skills and talents of neurodivergent individuals while creating more inclusive and equitable cultures that celebrate differences and empower every individual. Neurodiversity refers to the natural differences, such as those seen as autism, ADHD, and learning disabilities, are part of should be recognized and respected as part of human diversity rather than viewed as problems to be fixed. Let me scroll down. I left my mouse out in the living room. The neurodiversity paradigm encourages understanding and acceptance of these differences, starting off addressing the first question. Neurodivergent is an umbrella term. Clinic neurodivergent is a non medical term that describes people whose brains develop or works differently for some reason. This means the person has different strengths and struggles from people whose brain develop or work more neurotypical. While some people who are neurodivergent have medical conditions, it also happens that people where a medical condition or a diagnosis hasn't been identified. Someone on the more different end may have a unique ability for understanding complex mathematics, recognizing obscure patterns in data, and or memorizing intricate details. Moreover, neurodiverse individuals may also possess an unmatched level of concentration and a boundless imagination. Paired with their predisposition for pattern recognition and memorization, that differentness in brain function develops function and development allows a level of creativity and creative insight exclusive to the neurodiverse population. I thought that was really, really interesting. And unfortunately, special talents and inclinations frequently go unrecognized or overlooked due to the biases or ignorance that surrounds the neurodiverse community. These social stigmas are often centered around the limited interpersonal bandwidth of the neurodivergent. Since the interpersonal aversion can present itself in a number of ways depending on the underlying cause of the divergence, employers as well tend to leaving the paper perfect candidate failing to make it past preliminary interviews when they don't necessarily fit the person sought, sought after by the company. And so, there's, and this I found really interesting. Um, Autism, ASD, is a prime example of neurodivergent. It's a neurological condition that remarkably influences the way individuals interpret information and engage with their surroundings. ASD is marked by unique communication styles, social interaction methods, and repetitive behaviors.
Your sound keeps going in and out.
And you know, um, within many settings. And now it's not just autism, because for the longest time I thought we were just talking about autism, but ADHD is a prevalent neurodivergent condition and affects millions globally. This disorder is characterized by challenges in maintaining attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. ADHD is not a one size fits all condition. Can
Hey, Linda. All right, we just lost Linda. You got to give us a minute.
and everything all by himself. He'll just he because of good education and I'm sure in some ways good medication too has really helped him. Dyslexia is a common neurodivergent reading and writing difficulties with organization and planning, letter reversals, and trouble following written instructions. Inconsistent spelling and better understanding of verbal information compared to written are also common characteristics. And and again, it's really neat when we talk about neuro my tongue's getting twisted, that there's all these other This one is, and I met somebody with this, is dyscalculia is a unique neurodivergent condition that's frequently misinterpreted. The brain understands quantities, numbers, and mathematical ideas. It's essential to note that, like all examples of neurodivergent, dys individuals may struggle with understanding quantities and concepts, while others may find it challenging to remember numbers or connect. I came across only because I was in a store when the woman told him 29.95. He said, "Can you write it down?" He, her telling him didn't mean a thing.
You know, Ariana has the same thing. That's part of her issue with her math is she's got dyscalculia, and there's a phenomenal amount of games that you could play to help rewire the brain to help be able to overcome that.
Not seen any sign of that with him for the longest time. He's now in his 30s. Um, And then Down syndrome is a neurodivergent condition characterized by an extra copy of chromosome 21. This genetic difference affects physical growth, cognitive abilities, and can also lead to certain health complications. However, remember that individuals with Down syndromes are not defined by their condition. They possess unique strengths and abilities that contribute. Celebrities with autism. I thought this was interesting. That Dan Aykroyd, the famous actor and comedian from Ghostbusters, Blues Brothers, Saturday Night Live, has always been open about his mental health. He said, "I was diagnosed with Tourette's at age 12. I had physical tics, nervousness, and made grunting noises, and affected how outgoing. I also have Asperger's, but I can manage it. It wasn't diagnosed until the early 1980s when my wife diagnosed with ASD until she was 51 years old and spent years believing she had what doctors called brain damage. I always knew it was an unfair label," Boyle said. "Now I have a clearer understanding of what's wrong, and I it's at age 4 or 5. He had hyperfixations and hyperfocus, sensory adherence to routine, and social. I just found this very interesting, Mary, and just really opened up my eyes to what um, what neurodiversion is, and you know, across the spectrum, I can see just about everybody may have little touches of certain things and certain parts, as it were, of the spectrum. So,
That's kind of why they made neurodiversity the name, so that
hmm,
people would realize that we're not different than everybody else. We're just
yeah,
wired a little differently. And what's really phenomenal is they've come out with some new scans and new research, and finding out that neurodiversity people, they use more of their brain at one time than the average person. So, when you're born, your brain's all lit up. And as you learn how to do things, your brain starts what's called pruning. It starts cutting off some of those communications to make it more efficient.
mm.
Your brain is the laziest organ in your body. Its only job is to keep you alive. That's it. And so, with neurodiversity individuals, certain parts of their brain aren't pruned like the average person does. So that's where you get a lot of the issues with. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, you were too. I know we got some pretty good wind, so it might be my internet connection. But so with neurodiversity, that pruning doesn't happen. So, but what's really cool is you can look at a scan, figure out exactly where it's lit up brightly, and where it's lightly lit up is where your talents and gifts are. And then
Ah,
you look at where it's slightly lit, the duller the color, that is where the challenges are. So, like, for instance, you're really good at memorizing something, but the communication barrier, like if you say something, it takes them a second or more longer to answer back.
uh-huh.
That's where that communicate or that wiring is weak. So then doing different games, different techniques, different exercises. Remember back in school when you were a kid and you used to do like square dancing and like the windmill, things like that?
Okay.
Those exercises, left and right movements and different things like that actually increase that neuroplasticity in your brain and helps you increase the different communications that your brain does to
Oh,
speed up the thinking process. When we stop doing a lot of these games and a lot of these different activities, that's part of the reason why we have a lot more issues with different things with the brain because we're not doing the simple movements that we used to do back as a kid.
that is so true. That is so true. Yeah, I can see how that, and I know that you're exercising um more than just thinking. You're exercising activities and movements. That's that's interesting.
The other cool part is what they found out, and a theory that John Hopkins is working on is they've noticed a buildup of lactic acid in the brain on neurodiversities compared to the average person, which means in theory they need more fat, they need more calories because their brains are
Hmm,
burning more than the average person, which means their brains are always processing, they're always working,
interesting.
which is why they get into a lot more trouble than the average person, at least in my
but
house.
But it's interesting with Jonathan with Tourette's. When they gave him Reglan, which is for ADHD. Now, this is back in the 80s, obviously, but that was the worst thing they could have done because um, he was undiagnosed with with the Tourette's. They just lumped him in back in the 80s. I think they just were giving every kid that acted up, Reglan.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas with Brian, it made such a change. He could actually sit down. I've seen the difference between when he didn't have his medicine and when he did as a young boy, because Jonathan and Brian are the same age. Um, they were classmates at one time. But um, but the difference is, with Jonathan being misdiagnosed and getting the wrong medicine, um, just really caused all kinds of trouble. But now you wouldn't even know it. But you talk about the hyper focus. He is very hyper focused on the detailed type of work he does. And so again, that's uh, one of there's challenges, but also there's benefits to the different diversities.
And that's the cool part. And like, there's so many kids or that were misdiagnosed because they basically
Mhm.
couldn't sit still. And
Right.
they didn't take the time to look and see, are they bored or other issues. They automatically just blanket it with ADHD. One way to tell if you have ADHD is you look at caffeine. So the
Hmm.
average person, caffeine's a stimulant. So it wakes you up. With ADHD, caffeine has the opposite effect. It actually calms them down.
It's funny because I do drink, and I have tried and tried at certain times not to have things with caffeine, but I can have caffeine right before going to bed and it does not affect me. Whereas Ron can have a cup of tea in the afternoon and it affects him. So, it you know, really is, again, there's so many variations.
And that's the frustrating part for like a parent, but
Hmm.
in my eyes, it's kind of the cool part.
Yeah.
Because like with autism, there's many other labels to go with it. And instead of just, because they want to fix the puzzle.
Mm.
And so you end up with like ADHD, autism, bipolar, yada, yada, you know, like and one of the big things that comes with autism is anxiety and depression. And one of the theories that we're working on with that is because, these kids are taught their whole life to be normal. You have to say the right things, you have to do the right things to be normal so that everyone's comfortable around you because of the misconception with autism. And so that's part of where the anxiety comes in at because you're always focused and worried one about what everyone else thinks, but at the same time especially with autism is that you're hyper aware of your environment. You're hyper aware of everything. It's a sensory output and it gets overwhelming. So uh, one way to explain this is
And so I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah, you keep bouncing off. So like you'll like go mute and then you like pop off the speaker and like
Big
it's almost like your screen's refreshing.
on Zoom.
Almost like you don't have a steady
Yeah. And sometimes on Zoom, I will get, low bandwidth, but I'm getting nothing showing up. It just, um, it's just cutting out.
huh. Are you on your computer or are you on Ron's computer?
You can hear me. Um,
There. Well, you're what is it? I'm watching the screen. It's like you keep like either popping in and out or and you keep muting. Are you on your computer or are you on Ron's computer?
I'm on my computer,
Oh.
but I'm in the bedroom. But my bandwidth goes from excellent to poor. But it's just floating back and forth. Right now, it's saying excellent. A minute ago, it said poor. So, but I think for today, we'll just wrap up because hopefully I learned a lot by just going on my computer last night and finding out information on neurodiversity and how diverse the neurodiversity is. Um,
It's a giant rabbit hole.
my words got through. See, again, it goes from poor. My bandwidth keeps going from excellent to poor, back and forth. So I don't know exactly why. So, but with that, I'll say thank you for listening, and Mary, thank you for um, thank you for participating. And again, it just goes from excellent to poor bandwidth, and I don't know exactly why. But let's end for today.
You'll have to check your wireless card, make sure it's updated. It might be a connection issue with your wireless card.
Yeah, I know Ron's on the phone with T-Mobile right now, and so we can hopefully something will work out better. It could be because I'm at the other end of the house, and that's the only thing I can think of because we usually are close by, um, to the to the whatever, um, in the living room, and that's where the computer usually is. So, but with that, we'll say thank you. Have a great day, and don't forget calls during the week and plug in on those. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.